You see locks every day, right? They're these symbols of security, of keeping things safe. But what if a lock wasn't an obstacle at all? What if it was a puzzle? Today on The Explainer, we are digging into the secret history of lock sport and exploring how it went from this really misunderstood skill to a massive global hobby. So where does a story like this even begin? Well, believe it or not, it starts with this, a tiny 1600-year-old Roman lock. I mean, look at it. It's barely bigger than a thumbnail. It's just this incredible piece of ancient engineering that really proves our fascination with mechanical puzzles, and figuring them out is, well, it's nothing new. And that question is really what lock sport is all about. It's this idea that you can look at a lock not as a barrier, but as this intricate little machine that you can understand and solve. The whole point isn't to break in. It's about the challenge, you know? It's like taking apart a computer just to see how it ticks. At its heart, the challenge is all about getting to know a complex mechanism without even having the key. It's a hands-on test of engineering, a whole lot of patience, and surprisingly, your sense of touch. So, how in the world is it even possible to open a lock without the key? It's not magic, and it's definitely not brute force. It all comes down to one simple, universal secret about manufacturing. Nothing is ever perfect. And that secret is called the binding defect. See, even in the most expensive, high-quality locks, there are microscopic imperfections. The little holes for the pins are never perfectly 100% aligned. So when you apply a little bit of turning pressure, those tiny flaws, that's your opening. That's what makes this whole thing possible. That first pin that gets stuck under pressure, that's your golden ticket. It's called the binding pin, and it is everything. It's the one weak link that lets you defeat the lock one tiny piece at a time instead of having to overcome the whole thing at once. Finding that pin, that's the whole game right there. And this methodical process is known as single pin picking, or SPP. First, you put in a tension wrench and apply just a little bit of turning force. Then you use a pick to carefully feel for that one pin that's binding. You lift it up just until you feel a tiny click, and you'll feel the lock's core turn just a hair. From there, you just find the next binding pin and do it all over again until, click, it's open. So how did this really specific skill go from something you'd only associate with, spies or criminals, to this huge, thriving international hobby with this massive online community? Well, it didn't happen overnight. It started with these small, really dedicated groups, like Fools here in the US, and the Association of Czech Lockpickers over in Europe. But the real game changer, the internet. All of a sudden, YouTube and Reddit just blew the doors wide open and made this once secret knowledge available to literally anyone. And today, that community is just massive. It's everywhere. You've got the r/lockpicking subreddit, which is so welcoming to beginners. You've got global organizations like Tool with chapters all over the planet. And there are YouTube channels teaching this stuff with millions of subscribers, walking people through their very first lock all the way up to some crazy complex ones. So what do you actually need to start solving these little puzzles? Well, surprisingly, not a whole lot. The basic toolkit is actually really simple, and it pretty much revolves around two key items, a pick and a tension wrench. Now, for a beginner, there are kind of two main ways to go. You've got single pin picking, that's the patient, methodical art we just talked about, and then you have raking. This uses a specially shaped pick to just quickly scrub across the pins, hoping you can get them all to set at once. It's way faster on simple locks, and honestly, it's a great way to get a few wins under your belts and build some early confidence. And here's the best part. You do not need to break the bank to get started. This here is a sample shopping list pulled right from the Reddit community, and it shows you how you can build a really high-quality, versatile starter kit with a couple of hooks, a rake, good tension tools for under $50. Okay, let's talk about something incredibly important. Because with this skill comes a huge responsibility. The entire community and really its legality all rests on one simple, non-negotiable set of rules. And this is it, the big one. The absolute number one rule that defines everything. This is the bright, shining line that separates lock sport from a criminal act. You only ever pick locks you own or locks that you have explicit, clear permission to pick. Period. End of story. Which, of course, brings us to the most common question that newcomers ask. Is it illegal to just have these tools? Could you get in trouble for just having a set of picks in your bag? And look, the answer is generally pretty reassuring for hobbyists. In most places, just owning lockpicks is perfectly legal. The law almost always comes down to intent. Think of it this way. Owning a hammer is legal, right? But owning a hammer while you're planning to break a window with it is not. It's the exact same principle here. So, all of this leaves us with a much bigger question to think about. If a simple lock can be this complex puzzle, what does that say about how we think about security? Because learning lock sport, it doesn't just teach you how a lock works, it completely changes your perspective. You start to realize that a lot of locks are more about the feeling of security than actual real protection, which in the end just makes you a much smarter consumer. If you found this as interesting as I did, make sure you subscribe to The Explainer. We are always finding fascinating new topics to unlock and break down for you. Thanks for watching.